You know me, Mike. I'm a bit of a basic bitch, and I don't have any credits. Don't have any cringe-inducing theme music. No Stephen Bartlett style tabloid headline thumbnails.
Yeah, I was very disappointed you didn't give me a chance to craft an incredibly cringeworthy elevator pitch to begin talking about how much money I've made and how amazing I am. So I'm ashamed to add that in post edit, obviously.
We do have to let people know that you've got three sheds, right, Mike? You're the proud owner of three sheds.
I do, yeah. I'll caveat that by one is only a wood shed, so you can get it and sleep in it. But yeah, I do have two sheds that, yeah, one you could easily fit a double bed in. The other one, I think, yeah, probably, if you're small, you could get two of you in there.
Go, it's their property rental empire is already on the way.
Yep.
The way up. So, Mike, yeah, actually, might as well let people know who you are because maybe not everybody does. But you were the first person who I learned copy from, or actually, who I paid to learn copy from back in 2018. Well,
Yes.
I've been reading your emails for quite a while, even before that.
Yeah, so I think I got into it in it's kind of cliche to say, but I suppose I stumbled into copy, as in I was writing it without really knowing I was writing it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll give the hopefully fairly non-boring story, but yeah, sort of personal trainer out of college. So started when I was 18, went to work in the gym, did really badly because surprisingly, when you're an 18-year-old who has quite, I wouldn't say quite bad social anxiety, but when you don't have a clue how to talk to people, trying to pick up clients on a gym floor is not the best idea for making money.
Mm-hmm.
But I started doing mobile personal training and basically just attracted clients through my website. So I managed to rank on Google and I just got into blogging. So I quite enjoyed reading fitness articles and I sort of wanted to be a fitness writer as well for a time. And then gradually, as I got more and more online, I started having an email list and I started reading more stuff. So I was kind of writing sales copy without knowing it. And then I think it would have been about 2014. I met a guy called John, who I still work with. He mentors me now, he was the first copywriter I knew. And that gave me a bit of a kickstart. And then mutual friend, Dan Meredith, I hooked up with him in 2015, initially for him to help me with my fitness business. But then I ended up working in his agency. Actually, no, it was back into 2014. Yeah. So it's probably about 2013 I met John, 2014 I met Dan. And yeah, basically sort of started earning some money as a copywriter then. And then I did the full-on switch in probably, I think it was about late 2016. I went all in on copy. So yeah, it's been close on 7 years now that's been my primary source of income, I guess. So that's the backstory. Not that you asked for it, but there we go.
No, it's good. But I was going to ask you is when was the first time you ever typed how to make money online into Google? But I don't think that's quite your story, is it?
I don't think I've ever done that actually. I probably have Googled sort of how to make more money as a copywriter, but yeah, it's no, I don't. I think I skipped that sort of pivotal step that most people seem to make.
You're one of the people who didn't get biz opt into the industry.
No, I have perused the Warrior Forum, but I think more out of a sense of trying to find the irony in it that everyone talks about, rather than actually finding it as a genuine source of information before realizing it's probably somewhat smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, look, being Irish, I'm a very skeptical person. Probably some people would call me bordering on, deeply cynical at times, and so a lot of what passes for education in the marketing copywriting space like just sets my bullshit meter, on fire. And you were one of the first people where I read your stuff. I was like, this guy seems on the level. This guy seems actually not just legit, because there's plenty of people out there who are legit, but they just weren't my style. They were just very hypey people. You were just both a person who was legit, but also seemed to kind of be rational, logical, and kind of straightforward in your presentation of what's actually going on. You weren't sugarcoating bullshit.
Well, I think I'd sort of got my cliched, overhyped sales copy phase out of the way by then, because I know that when I was still in the fitness space, kind of 2014, 2015-ish, I went
Mm-hmm.
from doing okay with just putting stuff together from a copy standpoint without knowing what I was doing, to all of a sudden you get introduced to the direct response world. And I was then doing the whole send out 5 emails on the last day of a launch, like if people don't want to buy from you, like, screw them, they can get off your list, that kind of thing. And I think two things. One, that just didn't sit right with me. So I did it for about a year, but I just didn't particularly enjoy doing it. And then I remember the first launch I did like that, it went great. But actually, when you're kind of hyping things up every 2 months, and now this thing's the best thing and this thing's the best thing, the results really went downhill. So had we connected a couple of years earlier, I think you'd have probably found me as detestable as we probably found many other people now. So I can't prepare always having been like that. But yeah, I just realized that actually, firstly, that stuff doesn't work. And secondly, I didn't particularly like writing like that. So yeah, nowadays I certainly try and put things how they are. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't try and put things in a very benefit-driven way. I don't sort of tell stories that make certain things desirable, but my sort of mantra has been, actually, how do I want to be sold to? I want someone to tell me a story and get me excited about the product, but ultimately I feel like I'm smart enough to make up my own mind. So I like to think that that's how I put things across to people anyway. Probably don't always hit the mark, but that's what I aim to do.
Yeah, it's the observation. Someone said to me that the way we buy is the way we sell, and I think that's very true for you.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people there who they see some of the big names doing certain things and they try and copy that. And I'm a big fan of swiping and modeling what works, but ultimately it also has to work for your personality. A lot of the people who do the very hyped up launches and do well from it, when you meet them in real life, they're like that. And I've always wanted to, or rather, I've never wanted to be the kind of person who people read their emails and then would meet them in the flesh and go, they're not at all like what they sound like. And I'm aware that there's a bit more, I think, it's fine online in email marketing, social media marketing, whatever, to elevate certain bits of your personality a bit, so 10 to 20%. So I'm probably a bit more sarcastic online, I'm a bit saltier, that kind of thing. But I certainly don't think that I'm a hyped up person in the flesh, or I try not to do that when I'm putting written copy together as well.
And when did you decide first time that, because I know you primarily as an educator, you taught me a lot of foundational stuff. And when did you decide, hey, I actually am going to teach this, or what prompted you to do that?
Would have probably been early 2018. So I did a good sort of 18 months completely full-time freelancer. And probably a year before that, I'd still been doing some fitness stuff with some copy thrown in. So even in that year transitional period, I was probably writing copy for 25 hours a week. And then back into 2016 to kind of mid 2018, I suppose, almost 2 years actually, I was probably working a good 35, 40 hours a week writing for clients. I was making decent money from it, as in more money than I ever thought I would make. But it got to that stage where it was, I wouldn't say burnout, because ultimately you're working from a laptop. It's like you're not down a coal mine or, caring for doing like palliative care or anything like that. But at the same time, I was thinking, I don't really want to be still sitting at the laptop at 5:30 in the morning in a few years' time. I realized that I was making a really good income for other people and doing well myself, but obviously you only see a certain percentage of that, even if you're earning some equity or whatever, it's a very small percentage of what you make for someone. So I did want to have a course. And then I met with John, who I mentioned earlier, who now mentors me, and I do a bit of work with him as well. And sort of he helped me map out how I was going to go about it. And then, to be honest, I sat on that for about 6 months and did absolutely nothing with it, because it was that typical case of, I'm earning good money, and in order to put this course together, I either need to work even more hours or I need to turn down a couple of clients. And I just wasn't prepared to do that at the time. In hindsight, I probably should have done it earlier, but I think we all get to that phase where, unless you are very entrepreneurial, if you've got people there going, here's some money to do some work for me, you don't tend to turn it down. But then start of 2019, I realized actually I don't really want to be freelancer or full-time freelancer in 10 years' time. So I need to pull my finger out now. And that was when I put the FKS course together. I think I started doing it together at the start of, pretty much right at the start of the year. It was kind of a typical New Year's resolution, really, of I'm going to sit down, do half an hour on this a day. And then I launched it in April. So then since then, it's been more a case of, I've never stepped fully out of freelancing, but certainly at times, freelance income's maybe only been about 15 to 20% of what I've earned. Just because I think if you're teaching it as well, it is important to keep at least some of your toe in the water, I guess would be the phrase. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, early 2019 was based when I thought actually I would rather have more teaching / coaching / educating than I would actually sitting there writing copy for other people.
Yes, and just one thing that struck me as well is that like you had a really successful first launch organically. You didn't. It was a long time before you started spending money on ads, right? You had like a lot of demand built up in your mailing list.
Yeah, I think so. I'd had an email list for copywriting stuff since about probably early 2017, maybe even a tiny bit before that. So it was a good 2.5 years before I properly launched something. I had a couple of cheap ebooks. There was one on like how to write closes, another one, I can't remember what the other one was. But yeah, sort of like $27, $47 e-products, that kind of thing. And I think I'd done maybe some affiliate launches for stuff as well. So the kind of thing where someone else was selling a course, but never really pushed it. And then, yeah, that first launch, I think it got about 70 sales. I think it was either just either side of 70 sales at, from a list of about 1,400 people, I think, a product that was $1,000 or slightly over if you did the payment plan. And then I did 2 more organic launches as well. And then I think I started spending money on traffic. It would have been, I used sort of a lot of the first lockdown to get my paid funnel up and running and all of that. So it would have been July 2020, I first ran traffic. So yeah, I did a fair few organic sales in the 15 or so months before that.
And are you still launching multiple times a year, or are you like evergreen now?
Yeah, it's more evergreen, so it only really runs through paid traffic. I don't promote it enough to my current audience, but part of that's because I'm also revamping it at the moment as well. So I've kind of held off on that. And yeah, I'm just wary that everyone's got the different approaches to email. You've got the people who like hard sell all the time. You've got the people who maybe don't hard sell, but they're always talking about what you can buy. I've sort of gone the complete opposite way of actually probably 80% of my emails don't even give a link to buy anything, just because I quite like that style personally. It seems to work well for me. So outside of kind of launches for other things, I've not really promoted it too much. So like I said, that will likely change in the near future. But yeah, it's generally sort of just goes to paid traffic, and it's the typical, cover your ad spend with sales of this, get people into your funnel. Then what else good stuff can you offer them, really?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've noticed with you is that you're not a hardcore promoter. Like you are very regular. I mean, consistently every week I get an email from you, and usually 2. But rarely is there a CTA that's directly about buying something. But at the same time, when you do have something to sell, whenever you do launch, you don't hold back. You will send a lot of emails, and you'll be full on, okay, I'm promoting for this window and I'm going to go after it every day. And then when that's done, it's like, okay, now back to the regular schedule of just nice and relaxed every week.
Yeah, that's typically what I've done. I've tried a few different bits, and that's one that sits right with me, to be honest. So as you say, it'll be a couple of emails a week, most weeks. Sometimes I might throw in a third one, but there usually has to be a good reason for that. So yeah, 2 emails a week. And then for a launch, we've all got our different structures. And I'm not saying this is the best, but for me, I've always found having your cart open for about 10 days or so, emailing pretty much once a day. I don't tend to do 2 a day, again, unless there's a good reason. I don't tend to skip a day because I think, well, I want to do as much as possible to remove objections. And then, yeah, for me, it's always been before a launch, I'll tell people there's a launch coming. I have something for sale. If you have no interest in this, then to be honest, you're probably not in the right place, because even if your only interest is, I want to see what Mike does so I can maybe model it, or not even model it. I think that's potentially quite big-headed to say, look,
no, stick the emails in the swipe file is perfectly good. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't like something I do, take a note of that. I think I'm never going to do that. But yeah, if you don't want to be there at least for swiping some ideas, you're probably in the wrong place. And then I think because I don't launch stuff very often, I do try and make it the kind of thing where actually, I don't know, maybe it's a bit cheesy, but I do generally want people to get it, because I think there is a lot of value there. So I launch a newsletter. I often do the whole, like the sort of the financial publishers used to do, whereby you get this thing for free if you sign up to the newsletter. There's no commitment to it. Obviously, my goal is to get people to stay on for several months, but I'll always put a lot of effort into what goes with it. So it might be, before I've done a course called the 3-Hour Client Factory, which is basically how to set up a cold funnel and run your ads and sell a mid-ticket product. There was a 30-day email challenge where I had a group that was email coaching. People could submit stuff. So yeah, generally I will do things I personally believe in. And so I don't mind going a bit harder on that, because I don't feel like I'm just going, oh, here's this person who I vaguely know online who's got something to sell and I want to make some money off it. I don't have an issue people doing that necessarily if they want to, but for me, I don't get excited about selling that kind of stuff. So if I'm selling something I'm excited about, then yeah, I don't mind emailing people once a day and saying, actually, I think this is really going to help you. Can you give me some money for it, effectively?
Yeah, but you've brought a bit more of that kind of not quite old school mindset, but like similar to people like Ben Settle, I guess, is one good example of somebody who's just very focused on building their own audience. Does some, you do engage people on social media, but you're not that heavy on it. It's really about what goes on inside your list is the core of your business, right?
Yeah, I have a policy that I don't do affiliate offers. So I will promote other people's stuff, but I don't ever take a commission for it, because again, this is not me saying it's right or wrong. I think it's absolutely fine to do this. I've advised lots of other people to do it. If they've not had a product, I've written articles where I've said, if you don't have something to sell, but you've taken a course or used a product, you love it, go ahead and promote it and take a commission. It can be a very ethical way to make an income. I've just chosen not to do that, because not from like, I want to keep people only on my list, because again, I'll promote stuff and not get paid for it. But I've always thought, actually, there is that idea that some people can get the perception of, is he promoting that because he really believes in it or because he's making a commission from it? I don't know, maybe that's me overthinking it, but again, it's just, we all have our things that we do and our stances we take. So I've always said, if you want me to promote something you do, I'm happy to do 1, maybe 2 emails about it, but I actually want to consume it. I want to know who you are. I want to know that if I send someone from my list to buy your product or whatever, they're going to come back and say, actually, that was really good. Not, yeah, I didn't like that. Why did Mike send me there?
Yeah, I get it. And like there's quite a few people out there who have pretty popular mailing lists who regularly they'll affiliate, once or twice a month. And, they're usually like the better ones have it's all generally high quality stuff from established names, but it still does kind of make you think, well, have they actually even used the product themselves? Probably not most of the time. It's just to scratch my back, I'll scratch yours deal in a lot of cases. So there's something to be said for coming out and saying, actually, I don't do this, and the only things you'll find for sale is my own stuff. And then it builds a lot of credibility. I mean, I have like so many conversations with people end up where your name pops up, and it's always almost universally people just say about like just how like straightforward and direct and honest you were in the advice you gave them. That's the kind of thing that comes back to me again and again. Like thinking about people like Connor Inch, who I know is like even being a client of yours and also worked with you as well. And even more recently, my friend, and I've just forgot her name now. I've got to pull it up because that's going to drive me crazy. I'm starting to have senior moments, Mike, and I'm only 43. Oh my God, Elise. Do you know Elise? She works at Chris Rice.
Yeah.
Had the same conversation with her about you, and so many other people over the last few years.
Well, that's really nice to hear, and I do appreciate that. And I think that sort of ties in my thing that I think you might have even replied to the email I sent about it, where I mentioned I'd watched a training where the guy, am I allowed to swear on here, by the way?
Of course you are.
Cool. Where the guy said the phrase of like, you don't have an email list to make friends. If people don't want to buy from you, they can get the fuck off it. And that just went so against my principles that I always say to people, look, it's easy to say I've got lots of friends that people know online, but I do know that I've had really good conversations, developed sort of relationships with people who I've never met in person. And to me, it's like that person may never buy from you, but I've got a lot of referrals from people who've never directly worked from me, but I had a friend or an associate that said, oh, I'm looking to learn copy, or I'm looking for a copywriter, and they've sent them my way. So from a selfish point of view, I think the more people who you can get to have a positive impression of you, even if that means occasionally missing out on a sale, like to me, long term, that just pays off. So you can look at that from a karmic point of view and doing good in the world, or you can look at it from a selfish point of view that long term makes you more money. But either way, I think both those things happen.
It's a reputation builder for sure. I mean, I've had today there's not a week that goes by where I don't get at least one and usually two inbound referrals from people who either I've talked with, or I helped somebody they know, or somebody reached out to me and said, I've got a friend who needs something, would you like to talk to them? And like this morning, like 1, 2, 3 people. I woke up this morning, there were 3 messages from 3 different people. Hey John, I have a friend who needs help with this thing. Do you want to have a chat with them? I thought of you. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like that's someone's gone out and got me a lead and is going to give me a warm introduction. And like that only happened because of conversations I had with these people months ago and sometimes years ago, where I just, it's not that you are, like you said, looking to make a friend, but you just treat people decently and actually, give them a bit of help if you can.
Yeah, and I see you do basically exactly the same thing, and I'll often direct people to you when they say what to do on social media. And maybe this is me making assumptions, but I feel like you've really played a very good long game in terms of, I saw you putting out really good content, sharing other people's stuff, and then now it's like, I remember, I don't know how long it was ago, maybe like a year ago, you mentioned to me you're putting something out, and could I sort of engage with it to sort of give it some help with the algorithm? And I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do that, because how many things of mine have you shared without me even asking?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you direct people to me? It's like, again, that's sort of relationship you can build with people. And so, yeah, if you play the long game like that, and like you say, perfect phrase, it's reputation builder. Again, it is a cliche, but kind of everybody wins, really. So yeah, you give people good advice, you help them out for free. Then if you do want something, it's the whole Gary Vaynerchuk, like the jab, 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 right hook. Whatever you think about his general strategy of content production, there's a lot to be said for doing that. And you can do it in a way where it's not like, I'm just going to give because I want something back, but you can do it to actually help. And then when you do want something, no one minds going, yeah, of course I'll engage with that post, I'll share it, I'll send you a referral.
Mm-hmm. And you said something where it wasn't you, it's somebody else said if they don't want to buy, they can get off the list. And I don't agree with that. What I do agree with is if they don't want to read, they can get off the bloody list. And like that's one thing I go through. I mean, I'm not the most prolific mailer, but I go through my email list at least once a month. And if someone has like ignored 10 emails in a row, they're gone. And I'm not going to do a re-engagement. If you're not a reader, you've got no business here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's the funny thing when people send stuff and they say, oh, your emails are too long, and they make a complaint. I'm like, well, you don't have to read them. You can just get off, really. And it's that whole,
it's not exactly War and Peace, like.
No, and yeah, when people are like, oh, that's why I do the whole I'm going to be selling to you next week. If you don't want to read it, get off, because it's a good disqualifier. You're not creating sort of fake outreach or being deliberately divisive when you don't need to. You are basically saying, look, you're here for something. You're here to learn how to sell. Otherwise, why would you be on a copywriting list? If you're going to get that offended by it, then yeah, off you pop. No hard feelings.
And you've come to the point now where you said like you just do a little bit of freelancing, and primarily the reason for that is just to keep your skills sharp, which I agree with. I think people who teach, it's incumbent upon them to teach about what's relevant now, not about shit that worked 10 years ago. There's nothing worse than hearing people talking about it, stuff from 20 years ago. And it's like, no, we don't want to hear those old stories anymore. But primarily you're actually making your business out of your own products and your own offers at this point, right?
Yeah, pretty much. As you'll probably know, I'm not a numbers guy, so I don't sit down and necessarily analyze it, but it would be around about 25%, maybe 30% of my income is from freelancing these days, and the rest is stuff. Obviously, that varies. Like with the core stuff, it depends how much I promote it. So if I've got a launch, obviously for a couple of months, that's going to be higher. Likewise, I'm at the stage now where in terms of freelance projects, it's very much a case of, I'm not saying it's not about the money, but if someone comes to me with a product that I really like, I like the people, and maybe they say it's commission only, I'm probably going to take that, because I value working with people I like and products I'm excited about more than necessarily making a certain amount more money. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you should do that above money. You need to pay your bills. You can't pay bills with sort of promises and excitement in your work. But again, for me, it's now I'm in the very fortunate position where I can pick and choose that. And someone might come along with something that would bore me to tears and say, oh, here's £5,000 for writing it, I'm probably not going to take that. But yeah, if there's something comes along, I'm excited about it, my freelance income might go up for a bit while I do that. But typically, I'd say it's rarely more than a third of my income comes from freelance stuff these days.
And the other thing you've done is like in the last year, especially, it seems like you've actually sort of like backed off on being oriented towards business and started doing all these crazy fitness challenges. Like, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been a fan of talking about your personal life and your beliefs and values outside of what you do, because I think it's just a differentiation factor. Well, that's one thing. And secondly, I don't love talking about copy. Marketing excites me. Give me a Rory Sutherland podcast and I'll sit there for 3 hours and I'll be completely enthralled by it. I find that kind of stuff fascinating. But actually writing about launch sequences, headlines, hooks, that kind of stuff, yeah, I quite enjoy it, but I don't love it. So I always say to people, whatever else you're doing, talk about that in your marketing, because actually most people are probably more interested in that. And then I also think the sort of the ultra running, the events, there's a lot of crossover to running a business as well. As in, yeah, there's differences to it, but the sort of mental drain that you can feel 90 miles into a 100-mile run, it certainly makes actually answering a difficult email a whole lot easier, or processing a refund request from someone who's been a shitty client. It kind of takes the stress away from that kind of stuff. And I also think that from a business standpoint, I've seen other people do this as well. It opens you up to potentially having more products down the line as well. Like I would never put together a here's how to be an ultra runner product, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. Someone else plans
Mate,
my
you've done
training.
multiple 100 miles at this stage, haven't you?
Yeah, like 500s, I think. But again, it's that kind of thing where could that be a career avenue? Yes, but I don't particularly want it to be. But also, I think there's scope there to do something that is a bit more lifestyle related, or to sort of have an offer that's a bit more around excitement, adventure, resilience, that kind of thing. So I'm not saying that I'd suddenly put that together, but for me, if you show that you have interest outside of your skill set, then you're getting people more to buy into you and kind of your, I sort of hate the word, but your brand, as opposed to just here's this person who can teach me this thing. And for me, that just makes for a much more fun business. It's like if I suddenly decide I hate copywriting, it wouldn't be that much work to have a bit of a pivot and go, okay, I'm going to sell stuff relating to this now. And I think that if you've got enough people who like you and what you do, and you're talking about other things, then actually, if you do want to change direction in your business, it's not that hard to do so.
You said you've been working, and I remember from like as long as I've been reading your emails, you pretty regularly make a nod to your mentor, John, who you think you've been working with for what, 7 or 8 years now at this point. Is that right?
I met him in about 2013, did a couple of his courses, paid him like proper money for some mentoring in 2018. And then, yeah, I've been paying him for basically full-time mentoring since I think it was early 2020. So yeah, three and a half years. And then now I do a bit of work with one of the businesses he's a partner in. So yeah, sort of probably known him for just over a decade now, I'd say.
Talk about that, about like your process of actually making a decision that this guy is going to be the guy who you're going to learn from, and being able to kind of maintain that commitment over the long term, because that's quite unusual.
Yeah, there's a few factors in it. The first one being that I am a fan of just sticking with someone if you like them and if it works. I think too many people hop around, whether it's fitness coaching, business coaching, all that kind of stuff. Like I've had the same person do my nutrition for about 5 years. I've had the same running coach for 3 years. And yeah, John has now been full-time mentor for 3.5, just because I think that you get big dopamine hits from hopping around and starting slightly different methods, but I don't think long term it really does you much good, unless you have generally got everything you can from someone and you want to go to someone who's got a different approach and integrate that. I'm not against it, but for me, consistency just wins out most of the time. But there are a few bits to maybe buy into him. I think the first thing was that when I initially met him, I had an online fitness business. He said to me, how many hits are you getting on your website? And because I was blogging quite prolifically at the time, I was getting about 1,000 hits a day. And he said to me, well, what do you sell? I basically sold coaching at the time. He said, have you got any any digital products. I had an ebook, which I'd never tried to sell. He said to me, okay, send me the ebook. I'll write some sales copy for you. So he did that. He sent me over a sales letter. He went, I'll do it for free. Just promise me you'll put it on your website. Let me know how it does. I think I had a list of about 800 people at the time. I put the sales copy on my website, and in the first day of sending out one email, it had sold over $1,000 worth of product.
Amazing.
That was a massive eye-opener where I went, okay, I've just earned basically the same as I was doing in a week of personal training from sending one email. And it was the fact that he didn't ask anything for that. And it was just, yeah, use it, let me know how it goes. And then just really very simply, everything he's told me to do or give me advice on has just worked, obviously to varying degrees, but I've never had a single launch under his guidance where it's been any less than what I've expected. We've had a couple of launches where I've gone, yeah, I'm okay with that. And then other ones where I've gone, that's completely blown my expectations out of the water and I'm super pumped about it. And again, sometimes it would just be a case of him saying, I'll send him my emails, I'll send him an idea. He goes, yep, just run with that. And there's sort of no input. So it's not like I'm sending him stuff and he's going line by line critiquing it or anything like that. But I'd say he's more a sounding board than anything. And his ideas, they're very different ideas. So you mentioned about a lot of the old school stuff and people going different directions. He's never I've never had a conversation with him where he's gone, oh, you need to massively change the wording here, or this headline is terrible, come up with lots and lots of different headlines and put in a ton of different hooks. It's always been, where is the prospect at? What do you need to do to make this different? So it's much more around ideas, psychology, the prospect's limiting beliefs, that kind of thing, which I don't see many people doing. I think people like your Rory Sutherland, so I mentioned people like Richard Shotton, the guys who are working in behavioral economics, they come at it from a bit more of that angle, but I don't see a lot of people who are really focusing on buyer psychology. Most people are caught up in the tactics and, oh, what's the best launch strategy in terms of what email should we send and when. I'm not saying there's not a place for that, because there clearly is, but just relating back to how I like to do things, it's the whole buyer psychology. What big ideas can we use that's going to get people excited? And that's just, yeah, that's why I've enjoyed working with them as well as the results, really.
Is it? When it came to actually vetting him, well, you kind of answered my question now. More about now at this point, you're working with the same mentor for several years. I mean, is it primarily strategic input? Are you coming to him with ideas, or is he actually directing which way you should move?
Yeah, it's always me going to him. So although I meet up with him, we have sort of an informal mastermind. So we meet a few times a year. We'll occasionally grab a coffee, that kind of thing. We've never done a single Zoom call. We've never had anything penciled in the diary. I'm sure if I said to him, how should my year look this year, he'd give me guidance. But I've always just kind of said to him, think of doing a launch in a couple of months. Here's what we want to promote. Here's how I think of doing it. What would you suggest? And he's come back and said, this works, this works, this works. With this one, I'd do this slightly differently. Write the emails, put the webinar together, send them to me. I'll have a look at it. So again, I'm sure he'd give me more guidance, but to be honest, the reason why I worked with him was because out of the blue one day, I'd bought a few of his courses. I'd paid for a couple of half days with him. I'd gone through the FKS launches and he'd given some basic feedback on those. He just sent me an email saying, if this is not for you, absolutely no worries, but I was thinking we've sort of had some good results working together. Would you be interested in doing more of a one-on-one thing where you just bounce ideas off me via email? We can meet up a couple of times a year if you want to. Basically, it's 10K plus VAT. No issues if not, but there's the offer. And I was like, that's a pretty no-brainer offer for me. Someone who's already provided a whole lot of value to you is saying, actually, for 10K a year, which in this space is not crazy money by any means, all right, deliverables-wise, we're not having that weekly Zoom call. He's not going every quarter we're going to meet up and do an assessment, but I don't particularly work like that in business. I don't look at my numbers much. I don't look at my data, which is a fault. I'm not suggesting anyone else should do that. It's just I've been managed to get away without doing that. So yeah, for me, it was like, yeah, actually, that's just a very simple offer. And it shows the marketing. It was a big idea, going out to someone who's already bought from you and making an offer where you're pretty much like, I literally don't care if you don't take this. but here it is if you want it. So yeah, signed up for that, and I say I'd not run the numbers on how much extra it's made me, but yeah, comfortably paid me back way more than I've invested every single year.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I stopped myself by asking the question about vetting there was I realized I was asking what the answer is. And it's like demonstration of competence.
Yeah.
He didn't tell you, hey, I've done all this stuff. He gave you some emails and said, test this out with your list. And you went and made some money. And it's like, oh, this guy obviously knows what he's talking about because the proof is in my bank account.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's not to say that that's how everybody should go around every single thing, because otherwise, when you're selling a course, you'd have to do free work for every single person. But I certainly think that if you've got someone you really want to work with, and I'm not saying he really wanted to work with me, but if you've got someone like, if you're a copywriter who's going out for a client, why would you not put together a couple of emails for them? If they're the kind of person you think would value your copy, the kind of person who already uses direct response, you really like the product, to me, that's a very simple way to do it. Or not even that, just as you say, demonstrate value. So I always like to do that. If someone says to me, like, should I join I'm thinking about joining FKS Pro, do you think it's right for me? I'll often just sit there or they might send me where they're at. I will sit there and do only like a 5-minute video. I'm not saying that I sit there and do a deep dive on everything they're doing, but I'll do a 5-minute video and just go, look, you said about this, actually your offer will be better positioned like that. Look, if you want, go and try that, see how it goes, come back to me. If you think it's worth working with us, then join. And yeah, part of me does that because ultimately I would like the sale, and I think the way to get it is in a low-key approach. But as you say, it's like, if you think you've got good ideas, you think you can help someone, yeah, you're not going to sit there and write a whole autoresponder for someone just in the hope of getting their money. And there's that thing that sometimes free advice people don't use, and people probably should pay for advice because they're more likely to then go and implement. But overall, I think that's the best way to do it. As you say, demonstrate you know what you're doing, demonstrate you're not that fussed if people buy the offer or not because you don't need their money. That to me is appealing.
Yeah, that's one thing I always do say to people is like, be hungry for sure, but do not be thirsty.
Yeah.
It's a fine line, the difference, but it matters.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's why, again, just something that I've done for probably for quite a while, really, is if this goes against a lot of sales and copy advice, but if someone says to me, I want to hire you as a copywriter, I'll have a chat with them, but I'll usually tell them before we even get on the phone or anything, by the way, minimum fee for working with me is 5K or 5K plus VAT if you're in the UK. Just because I started doing that because I didn't want to be getting on conversations having to sell myself, because that's just not me. I don't like doing that. I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm quite introverted, and I much prefer to actually, if I'm having a conversation with someone, have it face to face as opposed to on the phone or on Zoom. So it's more just selfishly to stop myself from having to spend time, in a conversation that wouldn't end up with a sale. But a lot of the time you find that actually that whether you mean it this way or not, it kind of shows confidence that people are like, okay, if he's saying his prices before we've even talked, that shows obviously he's not desperate for the sale because he knows it could be off-putting. So I don't think everyone should do that. Like, I think if you're newer, it's probably useful having those conversations with people. If you're particularly good on the phone and you're good at sales, I would say probably don't do that. But at the same time, there's an argument to be made for being very open with your prices and saying, look, here's my minimum fee. If you think that can work for you, amazing. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about what we can do together. I'm happy to kind of look at what you're doing, give you an overview. If you want to work together, great. If not, that's fine. Likewise, if that is out of budget, then I'm more than happy to recommend someone else. Just give me the word and let me know roughly what you're thinking of spending. I know people at different levels. I'm happy to direct you to one of them. Again, it's very non-needy. You're like, I want the sale because I want to make some money, but if this isn't for you, no issue at all. I'll happily point you to someone else.
Yeah. And the other thing that does as well is like, that's very much like sales. Is it tactics or strategy? It's more tactics, but it's a tactic with genuine purpose, which is qualifying the lead before you actually engage them in your sales process. Is like, are you a good fit to work with me? Am I a good fit to work with you before we get into the conversation about, are we going to work together? And if the answer is no, that's perfect. And it creates a great situation where they've come to you and they're thinking they're going to vet you. But at that point, you're saying, hey, no, we're vetting each other, not just you.
Yeah, and I think you have to do it genuinely as well, because people can consciously or subconsciously sniff out if you are sort of chancing it a bit. I think if you're a newbie and you go, oh yeah, so my minimum fee is 15K, you're like, I think most people are smart enough to work that out. But I've had people say that to me before. Again, with John, when I said, can I hire you for some consulting back in 2018? He said, yep, that's fine. Just to let you know, a half day of me is £3,000 plus VAT. I was like, okay, that's a lot of money, but you're very confident about that. It comes across as you obviously charge this and other people pay you for it. So yeah, let's do it. It's more money than I've spent for half day of anything in my life, but have it. Let's see what happens.
Awesome. You mentioned also earlier about you do like to every now and again take on a commission only project where no money's changing hands up front and it's only based on performance. And there's a lot of differences of opinion from different teachers out there. And I've had situations where I actually said yes and didn't work out for one reason or another. I've had situations where it worked out to a limited degree. But I've more often than not had situations where I've said no, thank you to those kinds of arrangements, because my concern was, how do I know they're going to actually pay the money later on? Because it's very difficult, especially if your business is mostly online and you're in different countries, very difficult to know, unless you've got a pre-existing business relationship with somebody, how do they handle money? And do they keep their word? Do they pay on time? Do they make it easy or do they make it hard? All these little things that can add an awful lot of stress into a deal like that. So how do you go about appraising a commission only deal and deciding, actually, is this one where I can feel confident that I'm going to be compensated for the work I've done?
Yeah, I would say that my stance used to be that always charge something up front as well, and make that fee, even if it's less than perhaps your full fee, make it something whereby you wouldn't feel like you were totally screwed over if you didn't get commission, either because your work didn't perform or there's other stuff in the process that messed it up, like prior relationship with the list, or I don't know, maybe they want you to write the emails, they've got a sales page and the sales page sucks, or you just get screwed over. There's multiple reasons why that might not work. So I always used to say, look, charge a fee that you're not miserable about earning. So if your normal fee for an email sequence would be £3,000, charge 1,500. Yeah, it's annoying, but ultimately you don't feel like you've been cheated. And then strategically, you can obviously do certain things to make sure you get paid. You can have access to like their Stripe or their payment processor. You can use your own affiliate links. Can you still get screwed over? Yes, but it does reduce the risk of that. And then in terms of the commission only stuff, I think there's two instances where I do that. One, if you're brand new, and I would do it for small projects by way of getting social proof. And that'd be the main thing of getting social proof, really seeing your work in the real world. Again, you may get screwed over, but it's like, well, you need to practice anyway. You might as well practice for someone who's actually going to use your work. Or then where I'm at the moment is I've got two things right now that I'm not getting paid up front for. One is, both of them I know the people. So I mentioned the stuff with John. I won't sort of give away a lot of details necessarily, but it's one of his partners. They've got a very large customer list in the tens of thousands. I've seen their business numbers over the last 3 years, and I fully believe in the products and what's being sold and the people in the business. So for me, if I didn't make a single penny out of that, I still wouldn't mind, because I'm having fun working with people who I like. The courses or the products that I'm selling are mostly digital courses, so I'm going through them, also learning from them. So like, it's still a beneficial use of time. And then the other one is actually an old personal training client from years ago. I've got very astute businessman, sold his business for multiple millions. He's now working with a couple of high profile athletes, helping them build out their coaching and their app business. And he's looping me in on email. So again, it's like, am I interested in the project? Yes, because it's about sport and coaching and fitness. Am I doing work that I like? Yes, because it's emails, and I genuinely write emails for fun. Like if I'm not paid to write emails, I will often sit there and just write a couple of draft ones just for something to do. And I fully trust the people. Okay, he's my point of contact in the company. There are other people involved, but in his role, I'm very confident that I'm not going to get screwed over. Stuff might not work because it doesn't always pan out, but Am I having fun with it? Am I also building a relationship with him a bit more? Yeah. And then later down the line, again, he's someone who is very influential, has got a lot of connections. So if I don't get paid anything up front, I'm like, doesn't matter. I've had some fun. I've written some emails that I liked. I helped support a product that I believed in. And actually, I've built a even stronger relationship with someone I liked already. So I know that they're kind of almost unicorn scenarios, so to speak. But actually, if you're in the position where you can work on a couple of projects like that and have some fun, like, are you that bothered if you don't get paid for it? Personally, not really. The absolute worst outcome is that I've had some practice writing more emails and sales pages.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that stands out from all of that is trust. It's like, you've built the trust, you've built the relationships, and that's why you're able to go into a situation where it's the outcomes are extremely uncertain. It could be a big win or it could be a zero, but it doesn't matter because you've got a relationship with people who you know will keep up their side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's the big thing. Like, people say don't mix business and friendship. And to a degree, I would agree with that for some things. I think certainly if you're relying on someone to make you money, that's a different scenario. If a lot of money is changing hands, I think that can be very difficult. But if you're going into a project where actually expectations are laid out from the start, I think, yeah, depending on who you are and on who your friends are and how you approach business, I think that can be very fruitful, and it can actually help you bond in different ways as well.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about your bright green car now?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah.
So you are like such a low-key person, so chill. You're always wearing like sort of muted colors, like you've got all kind of simple tones behind you on all the walls in your kitchen. Like everything is nice and simple and clean and minimalist. And then you drive this very leery bright green car. So what's that about?
Yeah, so I was going to say I've never been a car guy. I'm still not massively a car guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ask me anything apart from 0 to 60 speed and brake horsepower, I've got no idea. But yeah, I wanted a new car. I think it was end of 2020, and I wanted something a bit different. And just browsing online on Auto Trader, I'm a BMW fan. I know that there is a certain stigma about BMW drivers, but I do like the cars. I wanted an M5, but I didn't want just a black one or a grey one. Browsing online, saw one that was Java green. Apparently Java green is a thing. And it was about an hour down the road for me. And I was like the look of that. I put in an inquiry, and the sales guy called me up and was telling me about it. And he sort of gave me the numbers and stuff. I went, can I come and test drive it? He went, oh, not really, because it's a new car. I was like, okay, well, I won't worry about it. Then he went, oh, no, we'll let you come and test drive it. We're just going to move loads of stuff around, and it's going to be very difficult, but we'll try and make it happen. You can only drive it for about 5 miles. Fine, whatever. Turned up, test drove it, got back. I went, yeah, I'll take it. I went, oh, you want to buy it? So yeah, that's why I came to test drive. I went, oh no, I thought you just come and go in. I was like, no, I want to buy it. But yeah, I just really liked it. I think there's no way to not sound like a dick when you say this, but it's one of one in Europe of that color and that production line. So yeah, it's a bit of a head turner, and I just like the fact it's different, really. Like, no, very few people don't have an opinion on it. Some people hate it, which is entirely understandable. Some people really like it, but yeah.
What does your mom think about it?
Oh, she really likes it. Yeah, actually, to be honest, one of the big reasons I bought it as well was green is my grandma's favorite color. So
okay.
I thought, when I rock up on grandma's driveway in an M5, yeah, she really enjoys that. Taking her out for a few spins in it. We find some open road, put my foot down, and 97-year-old grandma has a great time.
Brilliant. I love it, man. It's so good. When people want to find out about you, have you got a landing page for your mailing list these days, or do people just kind of get onto it somehow through Facebook?
Yeah, so the landing page, the best place to go would be the freedomkickstarter.com/500 templates, or drop me a line on Facebook, Instagram, on the Coffee Shop Copywriter, drop me a message. So if people don't want to go through an autoresponder and just want to start receiving the regular Tuesday, Friday emails, just drop me a message and I can add people on manually.
Well, anyway, anyone who's watching this, I would thoroughly recommend, like, I've been reading your emails for 6 years now. And like, you're one of the few people who I've never So I thought, oh, I'm sick of hearing this guy's bullshit. Like, I mean, I don't religiously read every Tuesday and every Friday, but anytime I see your name pop up in the inbox between other emails, I have a quick look. What's Mike got to say? You've never actually done that thing where I've just thought, oh my God, what's he selling today? And that sort of stands to what we talked about earlier, is like you have the, restraint, and there's different things for different seasons.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, mate. And yeah, kind of right back at you, really. As you know, I'm a big fan of your approach on social, on email, and how you do stuff. So yeah, the feeling is entirely reciprocated.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I sort of found you in the first place and decided that I wanted to learn from you. Sort of a
Yeah,
values fit.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's what a lot of it boils down to, isn't it? Really, it's like people do sort of buy from you for your knowledge. Like you can be a very nice person, get along with people, but not really know what you're doing or not have anything unique to share. So I don't think you can discount knowledge, but ultimately, yeah, it's a values thing, as you say. It's like don't sort of always put your most extreme opinions out there, but don't be afraid to say what you think. Like I personally don't get, the only thing I don't do is I think is I don't get like political from a party politics sense. I think it's just it's like having football teams to support. Like it's just divisive, and I've never sort of got that whole thing of I support this party. I think that's just not me. But yeah, from a value standpoint, I think yeah, share your values. Some people won't like it, some people do. But the more out there you are with that, actually, the more the people who already resonate with you will resonate even more.
Yeah. I mean, I found I've, bought courses, done programs from a bunch of different people. And I've always found like that no matter what the quality of the actual education, what there were times where I thought I learned a lot and the stuff I got was valuable, but it wasn't a values fit for me after I'd come to the other end. And that kind of took the shine off what I learned, or maybe less inclined to actually take action on it, because like I don't really like the way they run their business. And then even though that the information they had was perfectly good, it just didn't fit with who I was or want to be.
Yeah, I've definitely been the same. I like to think that I don't think I've ever requested a refund on a product or course, because I've always felt that there's been something in there that's been useful. But as you say, things where I've either gone through and thought, yes, I can see how that works, but it's not for me, or I felt like, and this is not like being against upsells, whatever, because again, I have upsells myself. I talk to other people about doing them. I think it's very smart. I think if you're running paid traffic, you absolutely need to have upsells in your funnel. But the main thing I found is like you buy something, and all of a sudden the way you're upsold something else is almost like this thing doesn't really work. And that for me has been a big red flag. So again, I think that's very important. There's that congruency there, and ultimately feeling like you're more than just a customer. You're not just a way of someone else making money. They actually want you to succeed, which I think a lot of people kind of forget right now. As in, I've bought courses in the past that have been clearly snippets from something that someone else has done for another course. I remember buying one. I won't say who it was from, but I think I reviewed it for my magazine a couple of years ago, and it was only like $197 or something. And again, there was useful stuff in there. I enjoyed it, but it kicked off by talking about last week's call. I'm like, it's so obvious that you've just taken this from a bigger course that probably sold for 5 times that much and sold it as an individual product, that it had been such an easy switch to go to re-record the whole thing, basically. But even if you didn't want to, re-record the intro that made it sound like it was a standalone training. That's just one example. But yeah, I think for me, without going off on too much of a tangent, it's that whole values fit again. It's like, do I feel like this person has my best interest at heart and is similar to me in many respects? Or do I feel like they're just trying to sell me something to make money and then try and sell me more stuff after that?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with an upsell is it giving you more value for less than the full price? Awesome. Is it giving you something that's going to let you go on to the next level of whatever skill it is you're trying to learn? Awesome. But if the upsell makes you feel that the product you've just bought was a setup for the upsell pitch, then it's like it just kills the whole vibe straight away.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very difficult thing to strike the balance of, I feel. I certainly, when I'm coaching people and they're writing upsells, it is that thing of probably like 40% of the time they have it where, as you say, it makes it feel like what the person just bought has something missing. 40% of the time it's not exciting enough because they don't want people to get that horrible feeling of, oh, have I just bought something that doesn't work? 20% of the time you get it just about right. So it's a case of walking that line very finely. It's easy in some niches, like supplements. You just bought this. Do you want more of this same thing for a discount? Cool. That's a very simple one. But yeah, when it's a coaching offer or an educational offer, yeah, it's not easy. But my stance would be, if you're writing that, certainly for yourself or with a client with similar values, just be kind of truthful about it. As in, look, you've got this thing, it's going to work, but if you want slightly faster results, or if you want something that will complement it, and I think sometimes the complementary offer is almost easier. It's like, I was writing about something the other day and I was talking about, if you've got a dating offer, let's say, actually a good upsell would be something like a style guide, for example, because a style guide is not essential for the dating offer, but it's an add-on where someone goes, okay, yeah, the dating guide is going to help me get more confident. It might help me with my sort of how I introduce myself and how I interact with people. But the style guide, that's going to give me another level that I don't necessarily need, but it's going to take me from 90% to 95% perhaps. So I think trying to think in when you're doing upsells in terms of that, that's probably an easier way to do it than just here's another course that's going to help you get, you know, the same result but better.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it's the same thing. One thing I want to just sort of say as well is, like, there's so many people out there who are trying to be like somebody else. And one thing that I did learn from you and seen from you is that you decided to be yourself and show it, and it stood to you. Maybe, you know, short term, you know, other people who are noisier or flashier or whatever get more attention, but that oftentimes, that being like hyper extroverted, very in your face, is not super sustainable for all but a handful of people. And, you know, I have my suspicions about the psychological issues of some of those people. But like, people worry that they're not enough, they're not exciting enough, they're whatever, you know, but just who you are, if you're willing to put it out there, somebody's going to resonate with it. Someone's going to like it and want a bit more of it.
Yeah, to put it simply, I guess it's very difficult to keep up an act for years and years, even if it is online. That's just one reason why I don't think you should do it. And like you say, everyone's got something a bit interesting about them, something a bit different. You can play into your personality, and people go one way or the other. They either do, as you say, they're the hyper extroverted, look at all these amazing wins I've had, or they go the other way and do the vulnerability thing, which actually, when overdone, is not vulnerability, it's being a victim, which is just, or can be just as off-putting as, look at how much money I've got, look at my cars.
It's gross.
Yeah, and it just seems like it's attention seeking, whatever way you do it. But I certainly think that I found that going one way or the other, like either going too much into the whole talking about income, that kind of thing, or too much into I don't think I've ever done the other way. I don't think I've ever gone too much into vulnerability. People can,
no, vulnerable is not a word I would use to describe you. Like.
but I think there's a place for showing that when it is genuine and honest. So yeah, probably once or twice a year. And I don't deliberately to kind of plan this out, but I don't mind talking about stuff that's happened that's not so great. And actually, when you do put that in and when it's honest and genuine, that I know for me, probably I think it was like the second or third most responses to an email I've ever had was last year, when I wrote an email about how I'd been feeling lonely only feeling lonely over a weekend. But I think I just got a huge number of responses from that because it was written from the point of, look, here's the reality. If you're a freelancer, at the time I was single and just come out of a relationship, and it was like, actually, I had a pretty shit weekend, if I'm honest, didn't feel too great, but here's what I'm doing to sort it. If you're also feeling the same, let me know if this is useful. Let me know if you want to chat, that kind of thing. So again, it's not done strategically. It's just like, well, that was what I was feeling at the time. I'm not going to do emails every week that's like, dear diary, you know, today so-and-so says something mean behind my back. But occasionally, if there's something that resonates with your audience, yeah, put it out there.
I remember that email actually, and it was a really good one because you didn't just do the thing about here's my problem. You did the smart thing, which is here's my problem. Here's all the solutions I'm going to try to fix it. And it's like, stand by and I'll come back to you with some information about what worked and what did it. Like straight away an open loop, which is brilliant.
Yeah, sharing your journey, people underestimate it, but sharing your journey, if you're not an expert, that's the way to do it, is take people along for the ride on your journey. So it could be, hey, I'm not an A-list copywriter, but I'm trying to be an A-list copywriter. So whilst, if you're ahead of me, what I'm selling might not be the right thing for you, but actually if you're at my level, come with me on this journey. Maybe I'm going to do courses and I'm going to tell you about them, and that could be an opportunity to sell affiliate stuff. If you do a course and love it, tell people about it. Or maybe you sell something else. Maybe you sell a consultation call. Like when you're 3 months into your deep dive in copywriting, you might have people on your list who are looking to start. Could you charge 200 quid for an hour's consultation call? Probably, and it'd be worth it. So yeah, taking people on the journey, if you're not an expert, that's, to me, that's an easy way to build a business, because you're just telling the truth about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that talking about something as simple and ordinary as loneliness can trigger such a powerful response, but it's those kinds of universal experiences that are gonna have the most people who relate to it. I've got a friend who recently was going through a divorce, and he didn't bear all the details, but he just spoke and said, look, I'm going through a divorce, it's tough, but I've got to get on with my life because I've got responsibilities, got a business, still have to, child to parent, and here's what I'm doing about it. And he said he got massive response. He wanted to just put it out there because he said people around him knew or had heard, and he didn't want people gossiping. So he just wanted to clear the air and say that's what's happening. But when he did it, he said he got unprecedented response of other guys reaching out saying, yeah, I've been going through this too, and thanks for talking about it because I really don't know how to handle it.
Yeah. And for me, the big thing is there can't be a formula for that. You can't write it with the intention of I'm doing this for sales or replies, because that's going to backfire. But it has to be, other people might be feeling this. It might have been Ben Settle who said it. If it wasn't, then I apologize to whoever did say it. But it was something about you should write about scars, not open wounds. As in, if you're actually really struggling with something and you're still struggling to deal with it, probably don't write about it. I would only write about it when I've got a plan in place, or when I've started to fix, when I have fixed it. So like the email you mentioned, I think I sent it a couple of days after. So I was out of the real feelings of loneliness. So I'd processed it a bit. And again, I'm very conscious that, oh, he's lonely in his 4-bed house. I'm not saying it's the end of the world.
With his 3 sheds.
With the 3 sheds. But it's one of those things where it was written from the time I'd processed it a bit. I had a plan in place. Whilst it wasn't fully resolved, it was well on the way. And it was a case of, here's what you can do to help, or here's what I'm doing. This might help you. Would love to hear how you got on with it. That was basically it. It wasn't like, here's what I'm doing. Now buy my course on 7 weird ways to cure loneliness as a freelancer. Just that would probably backfire.
Oh my God, we are with an upsell where they can call you on the phone and talk to you about their problems.
Come for a shed mastermind.
And a second upsell for a sleeping bag and a thermos to bring to the shed with them. Mike, it's been great having you on today. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it as well, mate. I've enjoyed it. So yeah, always like talking to you. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay, I'll put the details of how to connect with you in the description of the video. And any final words?
No, not at all. Just if anyone's got any questions or wants to connect and we're not connected already, reach out. If we are connected already and we're not spoken for a while, then yeah, drop me a message and let's chat.
Awesome. Stopping the recording now. Thank you, Mike.